everybody. Welcome to Thunder Homestead. Everybody's been asking me how my little bottle lamb is doing, and this is Oliver. And I thought we've had a lot of crazy stuff going on in the world today, so I thought you guys might like to watch Oliver have his lunch, just as a nice calm thing to do for this afternoon. If you guys follow my channel at all, come here. There we go. If you guys follow my channel at all, you will know that, hang on a minute, guy. Oliver was a triplet. He is one of times 3 babies, and he's always been big and robust, but I just chose to use him as a bottle lamb this year and just let Time have to deal with the 2 girls. That gives the girls, she's got the twin black girls that I call Diamond and Silk, and she's got more milk for the 2 obviously than she would 3 lambs, which is why sometimes people do take a bottle lamb off. Like I said, with this 2 twin girls and then this little ram lamb, the ram lamb was the obvious choice to remove as a bottle lamb. That way the 2 girls will grow into a nice even little set. Sheep have 2 milk pipes, unlike cows. Cows have 4. Lots of other animals have 4, but sheep just have 2. So anytime you have triplets, you have to have a really good mother, and she has to have a really exceptional milk supply. Our sheep Dot and Eula both seem to do really well with triplets. Huge lambs, big sizes and so forth, when they get them to weaning at 2 months of age. Last year Time had 1 lamb that was a little small, which meant that it wasn't quite keeping up as well as the other 2 were. This year I just decided to pull this one off just to give the other 2 more of an even chance. Just makes things easier for everybody. As you can see, Oliver does not take long to go through his milk. He's eating formula. It's the Do More brand is what I'm using for him, but it has all milk proteins in it. You give a bottle lamb colostrum replacer, which is different from milk replacer. You give them colostrum replacer for the first 24 to 48 hours, depending on, how healthy the lamb is and so forth. And I actually give all my lambs a little bit of the colostrum replacer, just as par for the course, to make sure that they've had plenty of food and get plenty of colostrum from the mother even. And then once they get to that point, they're ready for the milk replacer. And it's a powder, and you mix it up. You have to follow directions, and you have to be very careful when you're making bottle lamb food, because everything needs to be, sterilized, really nice and clean, and kept clean all of the time. There's no, if you feed them in a bucket or a bottle, it doesn't make a difference. Every time after their bottle is through, their bottle is cleaned, washed, sanitized, because I do not want them to get sick. And the best way to have a lamb have issues is by not keeping the equipment clean. Also, you need to feed them at regular intervals. And at first, you feed them about every 2 to 3 hours, which, it's pretty often. But they just eat little bits often. By this 2nd week, now that Oliver is on, he was born on the 29th of February, so that makes him, let's see, today is the 17th, so he is 18 days old. And when he was he was probably about 12 days old, or probably even 10 days old, because he's been pretty big and thriving. We switched him to eating 3 times a day, and he eats every 8 hours. And most of the books and things recommend that if you do an 8-hour feeding, if you feed him at 6 in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then this last one at 10 o'clock at night, that gives a person, kind of a reasonable 8-hour period to sleep in. Not that you always sleep, because I do spend I'm getting up every 2 hours now watching the other one, because we're having 3 more to deliver here in the next, just probably under a week at least. At least 1 will be delivering within next week, possibly 2 more. So, but you do feed on real regular schedules, and pretty much I give him, he eats at least an entire 8 ounce. This is just a regular baby bottle. I do like silicone nipples rather than a regular latex nipple, because sheep have teeth and they're pretty rough on them. Seems like the silicone rubber holds up a little bit better. But he gets 2 of these bottles. I've actually given him even a little over 2 bottles every 8 hours. But what happens is, I just let him eat until he's full. And you don't want to, he's hungry all the time. And if you overfeed him by feeding him too often, or just feed him too much, you know, try to force feed it or whatever into them, that can make them sick too. Just like people eating too much or too often can give you a bellyache. And you just really don't want any kind of upsets when it comes to your bottle babies. And you see, it doesn't take him long at all to get these 2 bottles completely drained. It takes more time to make the milk than it does to feed the lamb. He's getting full at this point. It's just, in a minute, it's like he just, like the milk was just like, he's done. I'm trying to help Oliver to socialize with sheep also, and he's not a pet. I'm trying really hard not to make him be a pet, although, I mean, look, it's hard. He's awful cute. But one of the ways you do that is, as soon as he was, you know, able, where I didn't think he was going to be in any danger within like the first couple of days, I made him a little safe pen out in the barn that he was in during the day, and I would feed him in the morning, and then I would put him in the little safe pen, and I would come out and check on him a couple of times. You know, at first I was feeding him those extra times, and then after a bit, you know, he would just be in the pen by himself, but the other sheep are around him, so he's not like alone. He's just in the pen alone where he's safe, and nothing's going to get him or hurt him. Look at his little belly all poked out now. Come here. Come here. But once he's done that, and once he's gotten to that place, they start nibbling on hay and on grain really soon. And you want to give them about a between 18 and 19% lamb feed, and that's what I start them out on. And it's just like a regular mixed feed. There is grain in it. It's got a pellet, and then it has grain also, and it has molasses on it, so it's real sweet, so it encourages them to eat. But you put that in a pan, free choice, and then I give him some alfalfa hay, and I also give him some regular grass hay in that his little baby pen, his little play pen, and he's got that with him all the time. And like I said, the first few days, you know, he's not very interested in it, but after a while, they'll start to nibble on it a little bit, and then there'll just come a day when they'll eat more of it and more of it and more of it, because suddenly they realize, hey, this tastes good and it fills me up, and, you know, I'm doing well. And slowly then it's not that they will really decrease the amount of milk that they eat, but it's like their body is growing, and instead of eating more milk, they're supplementing that extra with the feed. By letting them go every 8 hours, like I do, they kind of get hungry during the day, and that kind of gives them more of a chance to start in on that feed. Try to get myself organized. This little setup that I've got here, maybe I'll kind of show you guys that too. I have just a container, and everything fits down in it pretty good. It's just one of those little canisters. I think I got it at Walmart or somewhere. But if you notice, the bottle will fit in here, standing up pretty easily. And then the milk I put in, basically it's a big pop bottle that I've cleaned out really well. You know, not something I've had laying around. I actually had to drink this pop for the sake of my lamb. But I've got it in a pop bottle, and I've got the pop bottle kind of squished, and I do that on purpose too, because when you're mixing the pop or the milk up, it takes the milk powder and the water in the bottle by the proportions it says on the bag, and then when you shake it up, it being kind of dented in the middle there kind of acts as an agitator, and it helps it to blend up faster, and it makes the milk blend up a lot quicker. So when I get done, usually, since it's just a little bit left here, I'll put the little bit left in the bottle, and I'll feed that to him on the next round. One thing important about the milk replacer, you try not to mix up too far ahead of time. Right now he's got probably almost enough for a second for tonight, so I probably won't have to mix any more tonight. But I don't want to let it, like, I don't mix like a whole day in advance. I maybe will mix one feeding ahead of time if need be, but I won't mix it a whole day in advance. And then I keep the milk in the refrigerator cold the whole time, if it's not actually being warmed up for him to eat. It's important when you warm up their bottles and stuff to just put hot water in the container, and then I got like his little bottle in the container, so you can see that or not, and then I put this jug in here so everything stands up good. It seems like it stands up and carries pretty well. But you put hot water in the container, and then the cold milk bottle just sits down in. So like when I get ready to feed him this afternoon, I'll take the milk out of my resource bottle and I'll fill up the baby bottle first and put it in the jug, and then I'll put the hot water in, and that way this milk will all be warming up. You do not want to heat formula. I don't care if it's for a baby people or a baby anything else. You do not want to heat it up in a microwave or on the stove or any other way than that. You just want to use hot water in the container and then let it warm like that to body temperature till it's warm. You don't want hot because obviously it'll scald their little throats. You don't want cold because they won't eat as much, and sometimes it can kind of cramp their bellies. Now, with sheep, there is another method of feeding them, another method of feeding lambs other than what I'm doing is called warm feeding. And the other method is called cold feeding. Now, let's see if we can figure out the difference in that. But to cold feed a lamb, what you do is you basically mix up, like I would feed him his breakfast milk and his lunch milk at the same time, mix them up and put them in a bucket with a little feeder nipple thing on it. And usually you do that when you're feeding like multiple lambs, so it'll have maybe 2 or 3 spouts. So you can either fix up enough for 1 meal or fix up enough for 2 meals and put it in the little buckets. And then you put an ice bottle, like, you know, frozen block of ice, like I had that pop bottle completely full of water and freeze it solid and sealed up tight, and then you put that ice into the milk receptacle, the milk bucket, and you put the lid on, and then that way the milk will stay cold and it won't spoil. You do not want flies in it or anything like that, so you want a lid on that bucket. You don't want the milk to ever get where it was warmed up enough to spoil. And then every time you feed them, you have to completely take the buckets. It's better actually to have 2 buckets. Take the bucket out, completely scrub it, sterilize it, make sure everything's clean, and put a new clean sterilized bucket back before you put more milk replacer. If you're feeding cold method, the milk, it's like the lambs are in a pen, and the milk replacer bucket is in the pen with them all the day long, and then they have free choice to the hay and the feed as well. So they just eat as they want to. The reason that cold milk replacer works is because a lamb will eat until they get kind of chilled. It actually chills them, and when they start feeling cold inside, they quit eating the milk. And so they'll only eat smaller amounts, but then as soon as they warm up, they find that they're hungry again and they go back to the milk, and so they'll kind of eat smaller amounts all day long if you do cold feeding. Whereas like how he just wolfed down basically 32 ounces of milk. No, it wasn't 30, pardon me, 16 ounces of milk, because it's 2 8-ounce bottles. So he wolfed down like 16 ounces of milk just now really quick. And, you know, and you can see he's got a little milk belly going on. He's all bloated up at the bottom down here. But that's okay. I'm belly full now. And what usually he will do is after he eats like this, he's just like you and I when we eat like that, and he will go lay down and take a nap for a while, and then he'll be ready to play. And it's kind of funny because the other day he was out here and he was like all full of milk still, and his sisters came out and wanted to play, and he was playing, and when he was, you know, he'd seen him boing 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 how lambs do. When he was doing that, his little belly was going slosh 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 slosh. You could hear the milk flowing all around inside of him. But so anyway, that's why you feed the lamb the way you do. Another thing you notice, you want to hold the bottle up for the lamb, and you know it does two things. It keeps the air out of the bottle, so that, you know, they're not swallowing a bunch of air just like a baby. But for ruminants like cattle and for lambs, it's better to have them nursing out of a bottle and a nipple, or like I said, a nipple on a bucket, a feeder bucket, rather than drinking out of a bucket, like sipping out of a bucket, so you're sipping up like you would if you would normally drink out of like a water bowl or a pail. Because at this age, their first stomach is where the milk goes, and if they're holding their head up, the milk goes into the right part of their stomach. If they're drinking the other direction, the milk will go into other parts of their stomach, and it doesn't digest as well, and it may cause them more digestive issues in general. When a lamb is first born, the rumen of their belly is not really very functional. I've got a photo, I'll try to put it in about here. Of lamb's digestion, and that photo will show you that there's 4 chambers in a lamb's stomach, or sheep in general, and the rumen is kind of like, they kind of operate backwards from what people do, if you can think about it that way. When people digest, everything we eat goes into our stomach. Well, first of all, we do a lot of chewing, and it's mixed with saliva. Our food's mixed with saliva, and then that starts the chemical breakdown of the food. Then it goes to your stomach, and we have stomach acid and things like that in our stomach, and it churns around in all the acids, and it breaks down the food. And then it goes on down into our gut, and in the gut is where we have our, you know, everybody's talking about the probiotics. You have a lot of biotic, you know, actual biological creatures, you know, bacteria, beneficial bacteria, that live in your gut, and it further breaks down your food and helps you to digest your food. If you can think of like a sheep or a cow or other ruminants, they're backwards. When they chew their food, the first place it goes is into that probiotic chamber. So they digest into the probiotic chamber, and it, you know, the bacteria and stuff all help to break down the cellulose that's in like the hay and the grass, and the plant walls that are in the plants that they eat. You know, and it breaks all that matter down for them to handle better. And once it gets broken down to a certain point, then they lurch it back up into their mouth, and they chew it again, remasticating, and they call it chewing their cud. And when a sheep chews its cud, then it's mixed more with the salivary glands and the saliva and stuff. And when they swallow it again, the second time, it goes into another chamber. And that chamber of their stomach, again, has more probiotics and so forth in it. And then after that point, it slides down into more of a true stomach, where you have the acid and the stuff like we do, and it digests that way. So it's kind of like their system is backwards from ours, where we do the chemical and manual digestion first and then the biotic digestion. Ruminants do the biotic digestion first, then the mastication or the chewing of the food, and the chemical is introduced, like the stomach acid, things like that, is introduced later. That way the probiotics, the bacteria in their system, breaks down those cell walls before the rest of their body digests it so that they can get their nutrients and stuff out of it. At first, lambs do not have sufficient biome or sufficient bacteria in their rumen to digest, you know, plants and stuff. So they have to kind of add that, you know, slowly. Some of those initial probiotics is what they get in with their mother's milk when they do that colostrum, which is why even on a bottle lamb, I make sure that they get as much colostrum as possible from their mother. But that first dose of that happens, and then as they consume like hay and little bits of feed and stuff, there are actually the bacteria they need living on the plant matter. And as they eat a little bit and a little bit, when they're first tasting it as a baby, they start developing those colonies that they need in their rumen so they can properly digest their food. So the little lambs don't have all that, and they have to be able to digest, you know, and that's why we want the milk to go into the right part of their stomach first. You're gonna go pee-pee for everybody and show them how you can do it. Just go pee-pee. Another thing, just a sheep handling thing, you seem to have less trouble with sheep if you plan on petting them on the shoulders, on top of their body, or on their back. If you look, see if I can get him to come over here and do it. Come here. Come here. If I pet this little guy, let me see if I can get him to do it up here. Come here. Come here. Come here. He wants to see the camera instead. Come on. Come on. If I pet him on his head, look what he does. See, you pet him on his head. And typically speaking, when you pet a lamb in the head, they will butt. They butt that head against you. And, you know, it's adorable when they're this size, but when they get big, you know, that can be a real problem. So you don't want to pet a lamb on the ears or the head very much, unless you want them to like to butt you. If you pet them on the shoulders and the back, they don't have too much of a problem. Also, ram lambs, like this little guy, you want to avoid petting them on their chest, down in here, like that, because typically that encourages the mounting behavior where they want to like get up on you and climb you, and that's just how they're programmed. So, you know, if you want to pet your lamb, pet him down here on his back and his shoulders. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed having a little time with Oliver, and hopefully I'll be able to find him a new home to go to soon. Somebody who would like to have a new ram. I would just as soon them have him as a bottle lamb. If for some reason he doesn't find somebody who wants to have him as a ram, yes, Oliver will be meat. He will be weathered and he will be a meat lamb. And that's okay, because that's what they're there for. So, anyway, I just wanted you guys to have a chance to see Oliver. And you guys ask about him a lot. I just wanted to tell everybody that I know the world's upside down right now, but, you know, take heart, be happy, it's okay. It'll all work out, it'll all come out in the wash. You know, we'll be okay, you know. I talked to my husband a long time ago about it. I said, you know, I was all worried about, you know, what would happen if. And I said to him, you know, well, what would happen if, you know, fill in the blank, catastrophe happens. And as they say, you know, the stuffing really starts hitting the fan. And we all end up, you know, no electricity, you know, nothing. We're all back in the Stone Age. And he's kind of funny, but he said, well, we'll all be in the Stone Age together. So I guess we can just, you know, appreciate that fact and it'll be okay. And we've been in the Stone Age before, we'll be in the Stone Age again, and we'll survive it. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess he's probably right. So I don't think it's going to get to that point, but you know, we've been given a gift here, if you could look at it that way. Everybody's supposed to be staying at home, and you know, don't go to work, and avoid all the social situations and stuff right now. And they're saying at least for 2 weeks, and they want 10 people together at a time. And I'm considering this a gift, because in an age when we have been so disconnected from each other, we have run and busy, and we have to go to sports, and we have to go to this, and we have to go to that, and we need to go shopping, and we have a million things to do on our list. And you know, we've got family on all ends of the earth. We basically now have a chance to reconnect with everybody. We've got a chance to have our family with us. We've got a chance, you know, for at least this, you know, 14 days or whatever it is, to reconnect with the people that we really love. You know, take some time, talk to them. You know, meet your children. Don't just, you know, in passing, you know, this is my kid, there he goes. Make time for each other. You know, don't worry. Don't make it all about, you know, being worried and stressed and stuff. Everybody constantly says, you know, if I had the time, oh, I would just love to spend a day in bed and read a book. Or, if I had the time, I'd clean out that refrigerator. Or, if I had the time, I'd learn to play guitar. Or, if I had the time, I'd learn... You fill in the blank. Fill in the blank with that. Because, you know, guess what? We've been given a gift. A rare gift in this century. We're given the gift of time. We're given a chance to reconnect. This is not the only time this has happened. In the 1600s, there was a little thing called the bubonic plague, and it happened, and it was bad. It was really bad. And it was so bad that they had mass school closings. There was a university in Cambridge that closed, and in that university at that time was a student named Isaac Newton. And you know, we talk about the coronavirus and everybody's running up the statistics and all this stuff, but the bubonic plague killed 60% of the living population in Europe. 60% by the time it was over with. I mean, you talk about a pandemic. That was some pretty major stuff. They had the school closings, as I say then, and they had people that were doing social distancing, although it's nothing like the social distancing we're doing now, where we just want to be in small groups and stay a few feet away from people and go through the drive-thru instead of going in the restaurant. Isaac Newton's family was wealthy, and so their idea of social distancing was they basically went onto their estate, shut the gates all around them, and didn't leave for 2 years. Isaac Newton was the student whose school was closed, and he didn't have anything to do for 2 years. And, you know, even before that, I mean, he's not a dumb kid. He'd been reading, he'd done all kinds of, you know, research. He was an undergraduate at the college. And, you know, but he hadn't really stood out to the college deans or anybody. During that time period, Isaac Newton was stuck at home, probably bored, and he started doing different experiments. He was home for 2 years. He developed the mathematics we know now as calculus from the stuff that he'd done working on, you know, reading about Kepler and Copernicus and Galileo. Isaac Newton did a whole bunch of theorems on gravitation and the pull of the planets, and how, you know, an object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon by a force. You know the Newton's stuff, or at least you should. You've been in one school. But he did all of that. He did all kinds of work on light and prisms, and you know, he was just home, trapped on his plantation by a pandemic. he kept notebooks and he learned and he did something, because guess what? He had the time to do whatever it is. And when the pandemic in that century, called the bubonic plague, finally lessened and people were able to come back out of their houses and go back into society, he had a notebook that he started sharing with the world. And Isaac Newton's theories and like I said, like calculus and things like that, it changed the planet. One man, one plague, one school closure, and he changed the world. We've got a little bit of time here in this world now where we've got social distancing imposed upon us. We've got a pandemic that's making everybody eat their toilet paper. I guess that's what they're going to do with it. I don't know. I don't have a clue about why everybody needs all that much toilet paper, just like everybody else. My little lamb here, I'm shocked to tell you that he has never ever used toilet paper in his life. Crazy stuff. But it doesn't matter. We have this time now, and it's not a curse. This is a blessing. If we take it as a blessing, it's all how you handle yourself. You've got the time to do the thing that you've been putting off. What is that thing? What are you going to do with your days? Are you going to change the world? Think about it. That's all I ask. I appreciate if you guys share this video if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel if you want to watch some more of what I do. I'm just a crazy old lady with a bunch of sheep and chickens, but I try. So, just thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.